down at the animal hospital for free Wi-Fi.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Lee, I'm hoping that we can get a quick update from you about Asheville because I'm just devastated, and I wasn't there when it happened and I can't get back home. Um I would love that.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. Mm. Yeah, thank you, Denise. I really appreciate that. So let's do our meditation first, because that's going to help me. And then and then I can do a check-in about where I'm at and check in with our Asheville people and maybe grieve a little bit together. So welcome to week 3, cultivating the qualities that make for a good death. And let's go through our intro a little bit here to ground us in our ritual, and um, and then we can get into some of our content in a bit. So our body meditation for today is something I'm in the process of learning from very, very smart somatic people in the world who are finding out where all of the soulful essence lives within our existence. And ideally, our bodies would be a place of pleasure and comfort and home for us much of our lives, but that's not what most of us experience. Most of us have cultural, personal, familial trauma. And finding our way back to nature realms or to neutrality or to being able to inhabit this existence has been a quite hard one. And today the body meditation is called the midline, the meditation of the midline. So if it feels right for you, if it feels comfortable for you, you can go ahead and soften your eyes, close your eyes. You can also welcome to leave them open if that feels safer or better for you. And we're going to start with a little bit of embryology. When the egg is fertilized, the cell becomes activated and it starts dividing. One cell becomes 2, 2 cells become 4, 4 cells become 8, on and on and on. This continues. And around day 14, a vibration starts to appear. It's called the embryonic plate. It's a vibration that within it contains a tiny primitive streak of stillness right in the middle. This is called the midline. The midline is born at day 14. And once that happens, every cell starts to be around this midline and suddenly knows what to do. Suddenly, each cell knows whether to create a liver or a heart or a spine. This is what the deep somologists are calling the midline, the breath of life, the web of life. So I invite you to try to feel into your midline right now. See if you can let the midline breathe you. See if you can surrender to the midline. Practitioners of midline meditation say we have a constant and complete access to an uncorrupted essence within us. That is the midline. And simply by being aware and in touch with the midline, we have access to the unified field of life. Every living being on the planet has a midline. And all of life is created from this place. It is the essential blueprint of life. And when we tap into it, we can feel the stillness at the core. When we are being made, all of life forms around this midline, this vibrational stillness. And we use it throughout our lives to source who we are. And when we're complete with this body, it falls away. And the essence or the midline still exists and returns to the infinite. So it is the beginning, it is the middle, and it is the end within our own being. Simply by being aware of this midline, we have constant access to the all that is. Just begin to notice the other parts of the body, the limbs, the torso, whatever's connected to or touching, chair, couch, or the floor. Just begin to deepen, being aware of the breath. When you're ready, you can let your eyes soften open, come back to the awareness of the unified field of us. I could stay there forever. Did folks enjoy that midline meditation? I'll put some resources in our resources this week. It's really profound, quite profound. This place in us that is untouched by trauma. So our next piece of ritual is to share the name and a little brief 2-sentence description of a beloved dead. Did anyone come prepared today to speak about a beloved ancestor? I think Becky shared with us last week. You don't have to have a picture. Jeff, would you like to share?
Yeah, I had two close friends die in the last 7 days. Uh, Larry Brown, who I've known for 40 years. I've been playing tennis with him for the last 20 years. He's a big guy. I could never get the ball past him over the net because it had this gigantic wingspan, room around him. And now he's gone.
His
But
name is his
his
name is
only-
Larry Brown, is that right?
yeah.
Larry Brown. And where did Larry live?
Here in Sunnyvale, in California, just half a mile from where I lived.
Yeah.
Uh, we used to play tennis every Sunday morning for the last 20 years. And then
What's the name of your other friend?
my other friend is a Professor Stefan Harding, who lives in a place called Totnes in England. And 8 years ago, I went and stayed at his college for 6 months, and together we wrote a script for an audio book on the evolution of life. And he wasn't a very friendly guy, but intellectually brilliant, and he really knew his material. But he was awkward, you know.
All right. So blessings go out to there. It seems like there's a big transition for both Larry Brown and Stefan Harding. And I'm sure
Yes,
there's a process happening in your heart and body and mind around this too. Thank you for that vulnerability, and thank you for sharing your friends' names.
thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay. So the folks who are just getting here, we are going to do an update about Asheville. I wanted to keep our ritual and routine for this week with our meditation, our beloved dead introduction, and a little quote that I have from Pema Chodron. And she says, death in everyday life could also be defined as experiencing all the things that we don't want. Our marriage isn't working, our job isn't coming together. Having a relationship with death in everyday life means that we begin to be able to wait, to relax with insecurity, with panic, with embarrassment, with things not working out. All of the places where we just cannot feel good are a sort of death. All of the places where we can just not feel good are a sort of death. Right. So Denise had asked, and I'm feeling the need as well, to just spend 10 minutes. Maybe Damon Sean, you can give us a little ping when we're at 10 minutes and see how we are, to just share a little bit of our hearts and our update about what's happening in Asheville. How many people on this call let's see, are living in Western North Carolina or have a connection to Western North Carolina? So Becky, Aria, me, Carl, Sarah, Dara, Becky L, Caroline, Douglas, Denise. Am I missing anyone? Let me go to page 2 here. Hold on. Keep your hands up. Becky Lubald. Yeah. So just collectively feeling our grief. Yeah. Hannah. Yeah, thank you, Hannah. Lumen, I know, is local. Yeah, so just a brief overview. I can only speak from my perspective, and then I'll sort of open it up for folks about what's alive for them. Hurricane came through Thursday and Friday of last week, and our town is really devastated. And for folks who are on social media or watching the news, you're probably seeing these incredible, devastating images, which it is its own form of trauma, right? Watching this stuff, seeing this stuff, not being able to do anything about this stuff. I think many of us are in what I would say the shock or helplessness or despair phase, right? We just don't know how to grapple with this. And so that's the place where we're coming to our unified field together with a lot of raw, I'm guessing really raw emotions right now. So let's open it up for some folks to share. I see Denise, you've got some emotion, please. I see Damon Sean with a hand. Please unmute if you'd like to share for a bit. Karen, Mobilia is local too.
Yeah, I'm going to stay off screen and listen. I didn't really sleep very well last night, but I just wanted to say that I'm from Miami and I went through the aftermath of Andrew, Katrina, Wilma, and this is more. This is a more thing. This is way more. And I just cry on a daily basis because I don't know what to do. I have to let the energy out somehow. I am in Wilmington with a friend and I'm safe now, but I keep tabs on my neighbors and they have access to my house and they can go whatever they need. That's all I can do right now.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening.
I don't think we have the resources to know how to grapple with grief collectively on this scale. And I know that there's probably some good resources out there, and I think we could really use them in our community if anybody has access to them. Denise, did you want to share?
Yeah, I'll share. Well, I was in Atlanta when it happened, staying with family, and for the first 3 days, I just thought it was a really bad rainstorm. I didn't realize how bad it was, and then I appreciate what you're saying about the traumatic effect of looking at all the images online, because that's what I finally did that on Sunday. I finally had time to do that on Sunday, and I've been crying ever since. I was able to get through to one of my neighbors who told me that the Airstream camper that I live in is okay. So that's good. But I can't get through to very many people at all. And I've been checking the outage map, and the power is still out in most places. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. There was things about Asheville that I did not love, but seeing it smashed up like that,
Yeah.
it's hard.
Yeah. Thank you, Denise. I really want to encourage you to get, grounded reflection and support. I mean, I've studied David Berceli's work, and he's the founder of TRE, which is trauma releasing exercises. And one of the things that he discovered being in war-torn areas is that sometimes groups get separated, and there's people right smack in the middle of the action, and there's people that get separated, and actually the people who get separated and don't know what's going on, don't have access and aren't there, suffer more embodied trauma because they don't have a real-time way to process the experience, right? And that's real. That's real. So for those of you who've been separated from your community, if you have a community in Asheville, are struggling just as hard or harder because you don't have a way to move that through the system. So David Berceli's work, trauma releasing exercises, see if there's someone in your area who does that. There's fabulous videos online. It's actually a process where you do different exercises to get the body to start shaking. And that shaking mimics release, right? That shaking in the legs, that shaking in the body. It mimics the things that animals do that because of our prefrontal cortex, we don't always know how to do. And it gets some of that energy moving in the body. So Denise, I encourage you to check that out because if
Thank
you're feeling
you.
isolated from the community, that's just
Yeah,
as
I would much rather be there,
Yeah.
helping. Much rather.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Who else would like to share?
I can check in for a minute. We live close to downtown. We're safe. It's down towards the river where the biggest damage has been. The Swannanoa and French Broad, of course, devastated. There are a lot of trees down, but roads are opening. Gas is starting to come in. Food is starting to come in. Water is starting to come in. So, as far as in the downtown Asheville area, resources are starting to return. Um, so I'm just, feeling really grateful. Um, Definitely have some trauma response going on, difficulty focusing, distracted easily, that kind of thing. I could feel some emotion coming up as we were sitting here with it. Um, it is hard to know like what's the best way to help and serve people. So I've just been in prayer, just asking for the right invitations and requests to follow because there's a lot of self-care and stuff to handle um, with our own lives and purpose and stuff. And just communicating with everyone and letting them know, anyone who needs to know how we're doing, what's going on. If anyone has relatives or needs anything, you can certainly chat with me. I can try and check on someone if you need. I think that's it. We have a couple minutes left for anybody who wants to still share.
Yeah, thank you. Helplessness and hopelessness is a compounding component to these kinds of situations. And while we need to take care of physical needs first, I really do feel like we're going to very quickly need to follow up with emotional needs here and help us all figure out how to process this collectively. And again, if you have resources, send them my way. I know some grief counselors. I don't know if they've ever dealt with anything on this level, on this scale. So here's another opportunity for learning. Thank you, Damon Sean. Anybody else? Satya. Yeah, the mute's not unmuting, huh? Never mind. You can't find the right screen.
Okay, here we go. It unmuted. I really don't know what's happening. That was a little comic relief, I guess. Okay, I'm going to try and not be distracted by that. I'm in Los Angeles. I'm really grateful that we're all gathered here. Immediately I felt some grief and emotions moving, and it just feels like so necessary. I'm just having a realization in the moment of the necessity of community. And, even as someone just watching, what keeps coming up for me is how hard I was trying to move to Asheville. And I just kept getting roadblock after roadblock. And so there's a certain level of gratitude coming up around that. And also just some, just like a deeper understanding and knowing of my guidance and how I'm protected for whatever reason, that is coming up for me. And then just watching it and having people that I know and love and care about being there. And I'm just grateful that we're all sitting here together, and my heart is with you, and I'm open and available to be of support in an energetic way in any way that I can.
I feel you all, I have been feeling you all from afar. I feel, particularly you, Satya, and people who are connected to the region, who are, aligned and like-minded. It's interesting that I personally feel like needing to figure out how to move this much shock and devastation, but also the energy around of like how do I describe it? The presence and attention of, I think, this, this world and the other world, it feels very strong. It feels very palpable to me personally. So it's sort of our theme of today, interestingly enough. And my intention was to sort of still move forward with this class and with this teaching. I don't want to run over anyone's process or trauma, but I'm also sort of committed to the unfolding of the teachings. And let's see if we can wade into it a little bit, and if we can weave some of this truth and reality and presencing where we are into the teachings as well. And if at some point it feels like, we just need to put this down and really just continue to be with each other, I'm open to that too. How does that feel for folks? Great. Okay. So let's just keep checking in with each other about all of that. Feeling really good being together. So last week we did Designing Your Sacred Decline, and we talked about the benefits of preparation. We talked about the 3 buckets of paperwork. We talked about the end of life checklist, and we went into wish 1 of the 5 wishes, which is, the sort of heavy hitter of the wishes, because it sort of starts to bring up like, who are my people and what makes the most sense? And if I don't have those kinds of people, do I want to think about patient advocacy? Do I want to start having these conversations? What are the pros and cons of the different folks in my life, and how do they measure up to some of these characteristics of the healthcare agent? Hey, Anna, maybe you could just mute people if they forget to mute, because it just reduces background noise. Thank you. Yeah, and these characteristics of healthcare agent being, available and willing, geographically, local, relevant, someone you know and trust, folks that are familiar with you and your family, ability to be fierce with medical institutions and at least have some working knowledge of how that goes, comfortable with the death and dying process, capable of making decisions, maybe willing to be on a care team with others who are doing it together, ability to hold the process as sacred, and someone who, maybe most important of all, understands your priorities. So how was it to digest all of that? How was that? How's that sitting with folks? That was a lot to contemplate. I'm so grateful to have these 13 weeks to be able to have just one full week with Wish One, and let that sort of simmer and digest. Anybody want to share what's alive for them about Wish One? Anybody get a chance to talk to family, friends, to think about this, to contemplate options? Maria, and then Dave.
All right, well, I'll start out by saying that I'm in a hotel lobby. So it's not busy, but I may be a little bit circumspect, but I did talk to people. I talked to those folks who are on my 5 wishes now. And I actually talked to one a while ago, and she's deferred because she has a chronic illness now that she didn't have 5 years ago. And I asked my sister, who lives far away, to be my second and work with my local friend, Megan, who has signed on for the whole 9 yards. What I hope to do when my sister is here in early November is have the 2 of them, they know of each other, but to meet, and for me to have a whole list of things. And the other thing I did that was really fun was look at bucket 3 because I've been curious. My wishes have changed over the years. And so I did a lot of reading about composting, or what they're sort of clinically calling it. What are they calling it now? Natural organic reduction. Human composting, basically. And it's not legal yet in North Carolina, but it is legal in other states. So I'll stop there to give other people time. But it felt really good to begin the conversation with a new group of people. And then my death team is pretty much set up with my circle of women friends who meets on a monthly basis. But they need more information too, specifics. So.
Yeah, what a great example of so many pieces there. Somebody opting out that had already said it, somebody else being in for the 9 yards, getting to meet them. What are the care teams up to? What are you curious about? Loving that. Thank you. That was great. Dave Werlinger and then Mary Marty.
So I had some beliefs that I've had a long time, that you kind of know when you're going to die. And I'm not sure if that's true. I've learned of some Native American stuff, which I'm not sure is true, but they had this thing called the final walk. And when they determine, they've fulfilled their time here on the earth, they just walk out of camp and they don't come back. And that seems so simple compared to what we do. And I've kind of been wrestling with, what do I want to do? And I kind of like that simple way of things, but it's kind of hard to know what you're going to want to do until something happens. And something happened to me earlier this year that I might have had prostate cancer. So I was thinking about, well, do I want to follow this simple path and not go and do all the chemo and whatever? And that really was eye-opening to me. What I really want to do? And it turned out I just have a slow-growing prostate cancer, so I don't have to do any of that stuff. But
I want to just point out that your concept of the final walk and your desire for simplicity is really perfect for what we're doing today, because that's a characteristic that lights you up personally, and creating simplicity could be a guiding light for you. So I wanted to really pinpoint that for what's about to unfold in our class today. Was there any last thoughts you wanted to share?
Yeah, I talked to this friend of mine that I asked to be my healthcare advocate a long time ago, but last week I was thinking about all the stuff she might have to do, and I'm like, wow, I can't really ask her to do that. And then I go back to this simple thing, and I don't know how to resolve that. And then I listened to the recording of last week, just because I don't catch stuff the first time. And I heard you say that, I forget what you said, but just, do what feels right and don't hold it loosely. And that was really helpful.
Yeah, right. Good. I love the guiding by simplicity. I'll weave that in a little bit. Thank you so much, Dave. Mary Marty.
Yes, thank you. Jeannie and I met, my partner, and we had a wonderful discussion about the complexity of choosing all these people that you want to support you at the end. First of all, we started with, we have no idea how we're going to die. And there's such a range of possibilities. How can we even think and plan for the complexity of all of that? And then there's such a wide range of people, and for me, they're in several states, the Midwest, California, Oregon. So just dealing with the complexity of the situation of how to look at death. And I'm along with Dave for the last 6 or 7 years. I thought, I'll know when it's my time. And hopefully I'll be close enough to Mount Hood where there's always snow that I can walk out into the snow and lie down and die.
Yay. I love that. Couple of interesting things in the chat from Dara around using a muscle testing method to check the truth about that. So there are apparently ways intuitively that we may know when death is coming. And I think there's a lot of traditions that believe that. And I love that. I think that that relationship with intuition is, again, part of what we're going to talk about today. And then Sarah, thank you. You can pay your advocates, your healthcare agent, or folks that are walking with you. And so if it's feeling like a lot to ask someone or a team, you could make it, if there's funds available, if that's your situation, you could make those available for folks who may be walking that road with you. So let's go ahead and take a 4-minute stand up, shake out, get water, little break so we can move our bodies, and come right back and we'll dive into content for today. Damon Sean, that little timer is really brilliant. Never used one of those before. Thank you so much. All right, welcome back, y'all. Moving a little slow today. I'm hoping these short breaks are helpful. So today, this week, is our theme is cultivating the qualities that make for a good death. And the intentions today are to look at the characteristics for dying, how to curate them, death contemplations, some death humor. I have some death jokes at the end, although today might not be the best day, and courting the mystical. How do we court the mystical? So it's sort of how I have framed this for myself today, and ideally this will be helpful for you, which is like, I want to talk first about what's our relationship to the infinite, what makes for a good death, and then these qualities that we want to cultivate. And I just want to show this. It's a little bit heady or intellectual, but I do want to show this little chart, which I've used in many presentations talking about spirituality. And I think of this as a theology spectrum. And what this does is it helps us understand how different people make sense of their own existence. And then what we do as humans is we build discourse communities around that, right? We are like, okay, this is how I make sense of my existence. Let me get with a community of people who also make sense of their existence in this way. And that's what we call community. And I do really think about this a lot, which is how do I talk about death and life and the eternal and infinite intelligence without excluding someone in the words that I use. This is really important to me because I'm so aware of the spectrum of beliefs. And this is a great little chart I found online. Someone wrote a blog about it. And on one end, we don't need to study it deeply, but on one end is this sort of human focused transtheism and atheism and agnosticism. And then it sort of comes into the middle in that green area, which is sort of a more material focus, which they're labeling pantheism. And includes some shamanic traditions and maybe Taoism. And then it sort of moves more towards the monotheism and then polytheism. And so I really believe that we have gifts for each other, for those of us who are all across this spectrum. And I really am still living into the question about how do I speak about this? Because I'm a staunch advocate for folks being wherever they are on this spectrum, but we're also going to be speaking about something bigger than us, right? And just to be full disclosure, where I land on this, personally land on this spectrum is somewhere in the middle around, I believe there's God in everything, and how we access that is mostly through our form and our body. That's sort of where those are the realms I play in. That's where Tantra falls. That's where Taoism falls. It's sort of where I come from. And so because I sit in the middle, I can see the value of all of the realms. So if you are in one end or the other and you want to coach me or give feedback or inform the group of like what kind of language or words would be better for you, I am really open to that, because I try to span the words. I sometimes will use soul or spirit or highest self, which has some Jungian concepts, has some religious concepts, God, goddess, divine, infinite intelligence. Sometimes I take it into this realm of inner voice or intuition or consciousness or guidance. I also love being in the mystery, in the awe, in the transcendent experience, or the quantum or the cosmos, or the laws of nature, the regenerative cycle, the sacred unknown, the generous unknown, the generous present moment. So I'd love to hear from you. And just to give a little context of why I like to go here is because regardless of who surrounds us at the moment of our death, we have an experience within us and with this infinite part of us. And if we've built a strong relationship to this essence, then we will be familiar and connected to that essence in the process. Just like we can be, it's like finding something to trust, right? And when we're in the midst of a huge loss, I'm going to stop sharing. When we're in the midst of really hard stuff in life, it's very difficult to find something to trust. And we may go through periods of our lives where we don't trust anything. Those are universal. That's true for all of us. And those periods are sometimes important, necessary, and even fertile. But when we're contemplating death, it's really nice to have an anchor somewhere in something. that we believe is trustable. For some people, that's nature, the cycle of life and death. Like, I'm going to die. That's how it's designed. I'm going to trust the design of that. I'd love to hear from some of you about language that you like to use, if you care to share, hoping that people feel included wherever they are in that whole spectrum. What is a word for something that elicits trust in you? Dara.
Eternal, that which will not change.
Yeah.
Only the love of God does not change. That's my experience.
Yeah. And you like the word eternal.
Yeah, forever, unending, no beginning, no ending. The thing that never began, never was born, will never die.
Beautiful.
That part of ourselves where we will go after death. That's the part that never changes. Everything else is changing.
Yeah. Thank you. Something constant. Yeah. That's why we did the midline meditation this morning too. Who else? Who else has a perspective on something to trust? Becky H.
I was listening to a meditation by Fleet Mall a couple of months ago, and I kind of changed his meditation to help my sister-in-law. And basically, the loss you feel from the death of her husband was a John-shaped hole in her heart. And it's not a hole, it's a doorway. And it only feels empty. But he's stepped back, and you can't go with him, but you can reach through and pull some of that love and peace from where he is and fill that hole, and all that love and peace that he's surrounded with, to fill that hole, and to feel it for yourself. And that was the image that helped us the most.
Beautiful. I hear in that even trusting loss itself, trusting the whole itself, trusting the quantum idea of black holes where everything goes to die is also the place where everything is born. They're now discovering on the quantum level, right? Like, so, wow, to trust the loss itself. That's profound. Thank you for sharing that. Jeff and then Satya.
Okay, I like to think myself as a very small piece of the big picture, and I'm not at the center of it all. I'm just another flower in the garden. And I see that there's no opposite to life. There's an opposite to birth, which is death. And I go through the process of birth and death, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, while I'm on earth. But life continues.
I love that.
And my spirit goes into the river of life when I die. And when I'm born, my spirit comes out of the river of life when I'm born. And the little baby comes up and whoa, starts crying. And that's the spirit.
Thank you.
And so that's kind of my worldview of where, and I put myself into that situation.
Yeah, I love the things that land for me as something to trust in that is the garden, that your flowers in, the river of life, and that there is no opposite to life. There is birth and death within life, but there is no opposite of life. Thank you. That really contributed to me. Thank you so much. Satya.
I loved that too. Yeah, so it's really been shifting for me. I'm deeply spiritual and, connected to God and the divine and divine feminine deities. And coming into the death world, it's really become so much more neutral. It was already happening, but now it's nature. it's the cycles of nature and that we are nature. And it's so simple that way. And also being with people, though there haven't been many, one that I'm working with specifically now, who considers himself atheist, and me being in a very neutral place when I'm in that space and being so open to hearing what his experience is, has really opened me to want to be more neutral on how I speak and how I am in the moment, to be curious about the mystery. I no longer have this like staunch idea of what I think happens.
Yes,
I
beautiful.
don't know.
I love that, because as we become death walkers for other people, as we become death educators, which all of you now, because you're doing this deep inquiry, you are that pioneer in the world for other people. I really love that, and I've been wanting to sit down and have a cup of tea with a tried and a true atheist and be like, help me understand this. You know, if you die and there's nothing, like, okay, I can wrap my mind around that. But is there still a pattern? Is there still a pattern to the universe that's worth relaxing into, you know? So if that's you, let's have a virtual cup of tea, because I, like Satya, really aim to be as neutral and curious as possible about where folks are coming from. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. One more quick share, Alan, and then we'll continue on.
I think this is like for a couple of decades, I've held the desire upon my death to lose a separate, personal, individual, merge with the all.
It's a little bit hard to hear you, Alan. I think maybe your connection isn't quite as strong, but the only thing I caught was having a separate persona for when you die. Did I get that right?
Both. Is this any easier? I would be losing an individual separate persona, individual identity, and merging with the all, and that has a strong appeal.
Gotcha, gotcha. Merging with the all. Great. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so our task, you know, this week's task is, how do we turn up the volume of that? So take a minute maybe to write down, you know, how do you turn up the volume with this part that excites you? How do you turn up the volume? If it's just going to be, I wrote this article at one point, which I published for Elephant Journal, and I wanted the title of the article to be "We All Die Alone," but they weren't that happy with that title, which, you know, I can understand. And they listed something like the 7 characteristics of that conscious death or something like that. But the original title of "We All Die Alone" to me is actually really good news. Like, we get to be in relationship with this part of us that is the one that guides, right? So how do we turn up the volume? So that's one of our questions for this week. How do we turn up the volume in ourselves? And if we're death walkers, how do we help other people turn up the volume in them of that relationship, of that primary relationship with the self? How do we help turn up the volume of that primary relationship? Right. Making some notes. Wonderful.
Hello, Lee.
Carl, please.
I'm not quite clear on the question. I'm to turn up the volume and how I want to die or which one. I'm sorry to be.
Yeah, great. Thanks for asking. So, right now we're talking about this relationship with the infinite part of us, with our intuition or with nature, with whatever we consider this sort of bigger pattern of our lives, right? Whether we call that God, whether we call that soul or self or any of those terms, right? The quantum, the cosmos, the river of life, as Jeff put it, the garden that we are in, whatever it is that creates mystery and awe in us, that's regardless of what our circumstances are, that's who we're dying with. That's who we will be with. How do we build a stronger relationship with that essence is the question. Is that clearer, Carl?
Yes, that helps so much. Thank you.
Yeah. So
Thank you.
turning up the volume really just means how do we nourish, strengthen, and increase our sense of this primary relationship with the sacred? What are the practices that we bring into our lives that enhance that, that enhance that? I'm going to send you all out to breakout rooms. And Anna, I had messaged you. Hopefully you saw that.
Yes, I have it ready for 10
Okay.
minutes.
Yeah, let's do 9 minutes with a 1 minute callback, and there'll be 3 or 4 of you, so it's going to go quick. But as usual, we have so much to talk about. So the question is, how do we, Lumen, thank you. Lumen wrote in the chat, how do we build a stronger relationship with the sacred force that we will ultimately die with? Is that a helpful phrasing? Anybody else have another helpful phrasing? Dara, how to turn up the volume on the thing into which we have placed our trust. Any other questions? Any other ways to phrase that before we? Yeah, I'm actually rethinking the time, Anna. This is rich and deep. It seems like folks probably want a few minutes each. So let's do 11 minutes with a 1 minute callback. Sorry to change the time on you.
Lee, can you repeat your framing of it one more time or put it in the chat, maybe?
Yeah, I really love how Dara and Lumen framed it. And it's already in the chat. Lumen said, how do we build a stronger relationship with the sacred force that we will ultimately die with? I would say it as, how do we, how do we deepen relating with the infinite? How do we deepen our relationship with that infinite self, that soul? If people are comfortable with the word soul, how I like to say it is, how can I say yes to my soul at the moment of death? That's a phrase I like to use. And then Dara said it beautifully, to turn up the volume on the thing into which we have placed our trust. Yeah? Helpful? Any other questions? Okay, Anna, I think we're ready. Welcome back. Let's go ahead and roll this into a 2-minute stand up stretch break and come right back. Divinity, there's like a level of trust with everything that is. And instead of thinking like I'm doing something wrong or that everything is, bad, or not everything, but like in this case, I'm in Asheville area, and it's like a part of me does feel super devastated, and then this part of me that feels in this deep trust of like the allness of everything, the infinite allness and nothingness is like, yeah, mm, hmm. Actually, I'm not sure how to finish that thought. But I think just returning to these touch points of like acknowledging that that is so, that I am like my world is everything to me. And also, like, I'm a world within a world within a world. And um, there's something really powerful and also something insignificant about that. Yeah, I love that you kept speaking in um, what could be viewed as paradoxical language, which is the allness and the nothingness, you know, and the world and the no world. And, that's how mystery is. We don't have language. All we can, in our duality, all we can do is use these opposite words, which ideally brings us to the merging of these ideas. So that was really beautiful. Thank you. And yes, I think, when we're having to process a lot of strong emotions, which happens around death, happens around devastation, we need those also. We need those tools as well. Can we trust the midline? Can we trust the soul? And can we feel it all, right? So thank you. That's beautiful. One more share from someone who has not shared yet today. Well, I trust you all have made some journal notes for yourself. And a continued prompt for you this week is this same question. How do I build a stronger relationship with self? If that's who I'm dying with, how do I build a stronger relationship there? How do I turn up the volume on my own divinity? However you want to phrase it, whatever words you want to use. It might be helpful for us to actually hear the way you're phrasing it. If you want to put it in the chat, because then it pings some of us, might ping some part of us that's like, oh yeah, I want to say it like that. say it like that. Lumen and Dara, you really contributed, I think, to the group by framing it. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, so that was part one, right? How do we develop this relationship with the consciousness part of ourselves? And now the next unanswerable question, in a way, is let's define a good death. How do we define a good death? And I really don't ultimately like the phrasing of a good death because it implies a bad death, and that's not a thing. But it does invoke curiosity, and it is a sort of simple way to say something like, what are your death intentions? What are your death guiding principles? So write those phrases down. What are your death intentions? Sort of like birth intentions, right? You're going to have a baby, write down some intentions. Hey, this is how I'd like it to go. What does your experience at the moment of death want to be guided by? What are the characteristics and qualities that you'd like to guide you? Take a moment, write those down. How do you define a good death for yourself? Not some, movie scene, not somebody else's death. How do you define a good death? Love to hear from a couple people. Again, haven't heard from today, would be great. Becky L.
Yeah, so this is a place of exploration, and I said I'd like to be calm and aware and not too painful and accepting of what's happening and maybe excited to leave my body behind and considerate of those around me. And I would like your indulgence for a minute because I'm here with my 98-year-old friend who is ready to die, but her children don't want her to actively take any role in that. And her doctor says she's too strong for hospice care. And last night, about 12:30, I woke up and I heard her gasping for air. And I knew that she always has a midnight snack, and I figured she was choking on something. And I lay in bed undecided about whether to go to her or not, because if she really wants to die. But after 30 seconds or a minute, it calmed down and she went back to sleep. And I could tell that. And this morning I asked her about that. I said, I heard this last night. And she said, you did? I'm sorry to wake you up. I said, no. But I didn't really know how to respond. I know we talked about this just last night. She would like to die, but her children don't want to support any active way of doing that, and said, well, you were dying. But I said, it sounds like that's not the way you want to die. And she said, no, it's horrible to not be able to breathe. It's horrible and your body just, forces you to have air. So then I shared the story when the next caregiver was here, so we can start to say, as things shift, how do we better support somebody who's not in the medical world actively dying, but would like to let go. And I certainly didn't want to call the ambulance, but now it's clear if it happens again, I'll go be with her so she's not alone.
Thank you.
and
Yeah.
see what happens.
Yeah, that brings up, let's talk about all of that part with your friend next week, because that's really, really relevant. But I would love for you to repeat your characteristics of a good death again.
For myself, yeah, I would like to be calm and aware, not in too much pain, accepting of the process, excited to leave my body behind, and also considerate of those around me.
I love that. Excited to leave your body behind, making space for that possibility, and then consider it. I love that. Those are really well-rounded. Thank you so much for sharing those, and bring your story up next time. Who else who hasn't shared today would like to share characteristics for your good death? Intentions for your good death. Whether you get them or not, we don't know. Caroline.
Hi. I have always just hoped for the most simple awareness. If I'm aware that I'm about to leave, that I just am able to say thank you for the experience. And every time I even think those thoughts, it brings tears to my eyes, because that's what I really just want my whole life to have been about, that I was aware enough in the process of living that when it's time to let it go, I can say thank you. And that's it. I mean, I put other stuff down, but that's just how I feel about it. And I practice it. I think about it. I think, like, if there was some accident that happens or something like that, can I be, how do I stay enough aware and present that I can just say thank you? Because that's all I really have to say. But the other stuff I had written down was that I would like to be aware but not afraid or in pain. I would like to be at peace and willing to let go of all the material stuff, because I'm really attached to my material life. And I'd like to not be alone, but with supportive people who can let me go, but are there to, like, celebrate that the passing is happening and be okay with it, that it's not creating chaos and sadness and all that stuff. I want my life to be celebrated. That's my plan. My plan is everybody's having a party when it's all gone, because I think good things happened and they need to be appreciated. And it's just a much better space than being sad and just, upset and grieving. I mean, you got to grieve, but anyway, that's what I think.
Thank you. I really, really love the thank you. I really love that so much. At the moment of my death, can I say thank you? I really, really love that. Touches me deeply. The question that I use for my contemplation is similar, which is, at the moment of my death, can I say yes? Yes, please. But I might even like yours better. The moment of my death, can I say thank you? My contemplation sort of came up. It really hit me a few years ago when I was teaching Walking Towards a Good Death with my friend Mary Lane, and I had this epiphany of, like, if I want to be saying yes at the moment of my death, I better be saying yes to every moment of my life. And like Caroline, thank you for this and thank you for this. Oh, this, thank you for this. Yes to this. Yes. Oh, yes to this. That's profound. Thank you, Caroline. So the qualities that make for your good death. I can review a few, that I have witnessed, which is when folks can receive the love and support from around them, have some level of acceptance and relaxation about their dying process, and some desire to stay in that liminal unknown. Those are the experiences that I've noticed where it gets lit, right? The room is lit, people around are lit, person dying is lit. And not that we have to go for lit, but if we're going to make a list of some of the qualities that might be universal, we might say receptivity. These are the yin or the more feminine qualities of life, receptivity, the unknown. So you might harvest some words out of that excite you. Surrender, letting go, receptivity, trust. And see what you can do to sort of play with those words this coming week. And then there's some unique words, right? Like Dave was speaking earlier about simple. Like, this is all just too complex for me. I don't want all this complexity. I just want a simple, I want to walk, and Mary Marty said it too. I want to walk in the snow. I just want to go outside. Don't bother me with all this. Awesome. What does it look like to cultivate that, right? I think I shared with you already this story of someone who took the class last time around who said, I want to just travel and be wild till my final day, on my final hour. So wildness was something that he really wanted to cultivate. Humor. My mother played this Go Wish game, which is going to be our homework for this week. And she wrote, we whittled it down to like her top 3 or 4 qualities, and humor was one of hers. And I would never choose that. I'm just such a serious person. And I thought, that's amazing. I might actually make her wrong about that if I didn't cultivate my capacity for somebody else having their choice, like if I didn't know that, I might make her wrong about that. But humor might be a quality that someone wants to cultivate. And how, as death pioneers, as death walkers, do we say, okay, great, let's bring in the humor as a quality? What are some of yours? Hannah, did you want to speak? Was that an accident?
I was just trying to figure out how to raise my hand because the button's not showing up. But, I have been thinking about 2 very dear people to me who've crossed over and things that I learned and have loved about their deaths. One was Alex, who, as Lee knows, I was with when he drowned, and he was so encased in the underbrush of the lake where we were. And the idea of just being so embraced by nature and by a place that he loved, that we as our tribe loved, and just taken in and made such a part of it at the end. And there was no struggle. So there's, that element that, as far as I know, there was no struggle. So believing that feels like such a breath of surrender, that idea of being able to really being taken in by nature and taken in by the places that we love.
I love the eroticism of that.
Right? Right?
I love I've often wondered about this relationship between predator and prey, and if there's an eroticism to that moment of death between predator and prey. And it's very dark, it's a very dark question, but I think you all can handle it. And the surrender of that, and how that might play out in our sexual or erotic lives. And dying erotically is very much a question for me. Can we do this ecstatic erotic as tantra practitioners, and who know how to run energy in our bodies? Can we can we cultivate the ability to run that kind of energy at the moment of our death? You know? So the characteristic I hear you speaking out is embraced in the surrender to nature.
Yeah. And there's, what you're speaking to is really aligned with, the other person whose death I was thinking about, who was my Tantra teacher, Denise, who chose to take her own life. And when I connected with her spirit after her passing, and after I learned about how she did it, what I felt was so deeply her like surrender in to the unknown. And there was this vision of really letting that exhale, that final exhale, be that like ultimate surrender to the lover, to the divine, to our own untethering to this plane of existence. um and with my grandfather, when he crossed over as well, he was surrounded by people forever, like for days. And it was in the like 5 minutes that someone stepped out of his room to make a phone call that he chose to cross over. And I heard that that's quite common as well. So it's like, as much as we don't want to be alone, perhaps I can imagine actually needing to be alone in order to be able to fully surrender and connect with that.
Right. For those of us where part of us is trying to take care of everybody else, and we feel pulled, we feel called, but like we need to wait until we're not taking care of other people. Yeah. Oh, so beautiful. Thank you for sharing those pieces. I feel really impacted by that. And that, I hear you, Satya, chiming up like, oh, it's amazing, like what is the erotic nature? Ina May Gaskin, who sort of pioneered spiritual midwifery, she wrote a fabulous book in the 70s about how to use erotic and sexual energy to birth a baby. This was radically different than what the medical institutions were doing. And yet her outcomes, vastly better than what's happening in the medical industry. She's using the energy that put the baby in there to get the baby out of there, right? And using erotic breath, movement, sound, using the whole body. She really pioneered, and I wonder if one of us is going to be a pioneer of erotic dying. And what could that look like? The very energy that created us, can it be the energy we drift out on, we are propelled out on? So, I'm fascinated by this work, and what we need is people who are oriented that way, who are willing to experiment with dying that way, so that may be some of us when we get there. Mary Marty.
I read Ida Mae Gaskin in the 70s, and that's how I birthed my babies. And so I'm going, oh, hey, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, go out with an orgasm, Mary Marty. Do it. Go out with an orgasm. So, my next suggestion is to talk a little bit about those qualities. I'm thinking to do another round of breakout room. Let me just get a poll for a second. So why don't you set it up anyway, Anna, for again, it looks like 3 folks is right, but the qualities, writing down the qualities that you define for you a good death. And then what I'd like you to talk about is how to cultivate those qualities in your life. If an erotic death is what you'd like, if it's a peaceful death, I love Dave's simple. I want simple, right? In order to have a simple death, probably makes sense to start cultivating a simple life, right? So you can just walk out of wherever you are and leave it all behind. Receptivity, some of these universal qualities, receptivity, acceptance. I love some of what Becky shared too, consideration, but also, attention inward. So what are the qualities for you that make for a good death? Actually, Anna, if it's not too late to change it, let's just do two people. And then we'll be able to have less time. Does anybody else want to share their characteristics or qualities before we go? So that might help us, inspire us, spark us. Carla, please.
Well, I may be getting ahead of myself since I've taken this class before, but um, in order for me to have a sense of peace at the moment of my death, um, I need to have no unfinished business with the people in my life, and I can't really, I can't control their acceptance of my death, but so I just put down, I want to have nothing left to say.
Love it.
No
Love it.
need to express anything else.
Right. And so if you have nothing left to say, then that might really generate the creative juices about how you get there. Maybe you write letters to everyone. Maybe like that's very creative. I love that. Thank you. Anyone else want to share a characteristic of a good death for them that might contribute to us?
I could share real quick. Um, yeah, some of the things I wrote were conscious awareness, that I'm really aware of my dying process and feeling complete with enclosure in my close relationships, preferably a short decline, like days or weeks, as opposed to a long decline, with an attitude of celebration and gratitude for the people around me and for my life lived, and excitement for the mysterious next chapter of the unknown. Um, my loved ones with and around me, and as natural and simple regenerative sort of burial of my physical body, and that one of my loved ones would be willing to sit and read the Tibetan Book of the Dead out loud once I've passed. So that's what I've written.
Thank you. All right, so you'll be with one other person and just talk about those. So your task is to talk about those qualities and be heard about those, but also talk about how you want to curate those and cultivate those in your life starting now. Between now and however long your death is from now, how do you want to cultivate and curate those? Hannah has two people in her team, and you all can probably get a third, or you can be alone, whichever you prefer. James and Hannah, do you have a preference? You want a third? Okay, so put one more person in with Hannah. And how many minutes do we want to do? I was thinking a little bit less, like 5 or 6 minutes. How does that feel to folks? Great, 5 minutes with a 1 minute callback. And then we'll take another little break. So whenever you're ready, Anna, I know I threw a bunch of changes at you last minute. Thank you. Looks great, Anna. I'm looking at the breakout rooms. That looks great. Darlene and Linda.
Darlene asked
Okay, great.
not to be moved. Yeah.
And Linda, did you want to go into a breakout room? I know you just got here, so maybe you're just wanting to catch up a little bit. Okay, great. Just hang tight. All right, a few more seconds. Let everyone's getting up to stretch. All right. Anybody who hasn't shared yet today want to share characteristics for your good death and how you cultivate them. How do you cultivate them? Anne Marie, you're muted, love.
One of the things that came up in our conversation was the element of feeling grounded as well as feeling peaceful. And that might include things like feeling at ease in your body, grounded in your body and in gravity and in this life experience, and yet being able to transition willingly, peacefully into the next.
I love that. Yeah. How do we do both things? That's an ongoing and constant question in life, right? How do we be in this experience and hold on to something more contextual? I love that. Thank you. Anybody else who hasn't shared yet like to share? Hi, Linda.
Uh, I would like to be able to let go, um, let go of everything, and I think I'm trying to practice that now. To start doing that now, letting go of holding on so tight to things, especially expectations and things like that. So I've been practicing with friends in meditation groups and stuff like that, but just in everyday experiences.
Nice. Yeah, I love the Tibetan tradition or the Buddhist traditions where they practice dying from the moment they're born, right? This is like every initiation is a practice. And so, like, letting go is one of those. Many of us are awful at letting go, right? Like, it's really hard, when we're done and we can easily let go. But at other times, and then noticing those cycles, like, where is it complete and I'm ready to let go? Where is it not complete and I'm struggling to let go? So beautiful contemplation. I mean, we could pick any one of these characteristics and practice our entire life long. Receptivity is one for me that I hold as this high ideal for myself, and I struggle with it a lot. And it's an ongoing spiritual practice for me to learn how to receive as I get older, as I want those qualities in myself more, and then realizing how I've been trained to do anything but receive. So thank you. Yeah. Someone else we haven't heard from yet today. Dale.
Yeah, so more of a question that I have at the moment, just inspired by talking to Jeff. I think two of the most important qualities for me would be to be present and aware. But Jeff brought up sleep as sort of a model for dying, and then I got to thinking about being sick or being sleepy. And a lot of times I don't like being muddled. I like to be real clear, so I use caffeine a lot to promote that clarity. I love that sort of feeling of being dialed in, but I feel like I need to find some ways to work with that muddled, not so clear to me, doesn't feel present, but maybe presence is still there. It must be feeling.
Yeah.
So I
I
don't
love,
want to get sick, but
yeah.
maybe there are some other times I can figure out how to practice that.
I love what you're saying and bringing, because presence is a really powerful one. And I think if presence is a guiding factor, that's going to inform next week how you feel about pain medication and how you feel about some of these sort of mind altering experiences that can happen at the end of life, which can either be labeled hallucinations or communicating with the other world. I mean, that's a whole question in and of itself. Like, where are you being present? Are you being present to this world, the other world, or both? So that might inform you on a practical level. I love that. And then, yeah, it might inform so much about your life if being present is your, desired characteristics. I love that. I love how many doors of curiosity that opens up for me. So keep being with that. And I love how you also are willing to contemplate its opposite. Right? I love this thing. I love presence, but what if I can't get it? Can I also cultivate the characteristic of its opposite?
Thanks.
Really powerful. Thank you. All right. So those are your homeworks for this week. I'm going to do a little screen share. Find my right place. First, I'm going to read you a quote that those of you in the communities class heard this, but it's worth repeating every day. Mary Oliver, beloved Mary Oliver. To live in this world, you must be able to do three things. To love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it. And when the time comes to let it go, to let it go. I'm going to read it one more time. To live in this world, you must be able to do three things. To love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it. And when the time comes to let it go, to let it go. It's a tall ask, this thing, which is why incarnation is no joke. It's really a big deal. So your homework for this week, to contemplate your relationship to the infinite, or whatever word you're using, to contemplate what makes for a good death for you, and to think about how to cultivate the qualities that you enjoy about that. Dale's talking about presence. See how much you can enjoy presence. See how much you can enjoy and revel in these qualities. Last course, we developed some channels, one on Spotify and one on YouTube, which are sort of death-oriented songs. And this is a great way to sort of cultivate relationship with the mystery, because music takes us sort of out of our right brain. It sort of puts us in that infinite space. And I think that there was an invitation to collaborate, which I will take a look at it and make sure that's there, because I love when people just add songs to it that they feel inspired by. So I would say, music is a really great way to cultivate and play with dance, music, movement, to cultivate and curate and deepen into some of these qualities. So I invite some collaboration on those playlists. Yeah, I had some death jokes for you, which we can see if folks feel up for that. Next week is honoring your container with your values. So the reason we do week 3 the way it is because you've just identified the qualities and characteristics that make for your good death. And then we go into wish 2 next week, which is really talking about medical interventions, pain management, alternative endings, and being at choice. How do you want to navigate practically the end of your life, given your values, given what matters to you? So these really go hand in hand. And one of the pieces of homework that would be really helpful for you to do is play this game online. It's called the Go Wish game, and there actually is a deck of cards you can order and buy, and I have one. It's great to play with a group, and it's nice to hold something tactile in your hand. So for those of you who like books rather than digital media, ordering a deck of these cards might be worthwhile. But you can also play the game digitally and online, and they have instructions there. And you can, they basically have, the goal of the game is to organize these cards into primary, secondary, and third levels of importance to you. And they limit how many cards you can put in the primary level of importance. And they are all things like what's important to you at the end of life. So having your loved ones near you, or making sure your affairs are in order, or being able to breathe. That was a great one that came up around Becky's story. Not being in pain, all kinds of different things that happen at the end of life. And then you get to put them in categories based on how that resonates or is not so important to you. So do that. If you do that game ahead of time, you're going to be prepared with this week's class and that game to be able to come into next week's wish 2 with a lot more understanding of what you want in terms of your container, your values, and how you want your end of life steered, if that's an option. Any questions about any of this? I saw someone was having a hard time getting the resources, and I'm gonna show you again how to get resources. But let me just see if there's any questions. Okay. So the resources page is, I'll show you again. Let me pull up my web browser for a second so I can. Okay. Anna and I have been quite good at making sure that the recording and the slide PDF as well as the chat are in there the same day. And so, yeah, Anna just put the link there, but I will go ahead and share my screen and show you all again where all the resources are. Here we go. Okay, so this is the page, and it has week by week. So week 1, week 2, week 3. So week 2, you can see that this week's content, if you hover over that recordings and slides and chat, you can click on that. That's a hot link, and that will take you to the recording from last week, the slides from last week, and the chat from last week. And I try to put all of the resources that we talked about. So last week we did The Heart is Not a Pump, how to pick a healthy healthcare proxy. Sarah put this really funny YouTube in the chat, and I put it up there. And then other things. So I try to capture everything, and they're all here because we're together so many weeks and it's organized this way. So this week, for week 3, it's not hot linked yet, but Anna and I will put everything in there within the next couple of hours is what we've been trying to get to. Any questions about where the resources page is or how to access that content? Baba.
Yes, I'm sorry, I had to run out. I missed how you access it because I can go here to the resource page, but what I found was, oh my gosh, thank you, thank you. You gave so many extra resources, but I didn't see where this homework one where you broke out the 13 weeks. How do I access that?
When you say homework one, what do you mean?
Well, the
Like,
one you just showed where you broke out each week, all the different tasks and resources for that week. How do I get to that resource page?
okay, it's this same page. Let me show you again. So
Thank you.
for week 2, for example,
Right, but how do I even get to that? I'm not seeing this particular page in my resources when I go to your resource page.
I don't understand. You're going here and you're scrolling down, you don't see this?
No, I see it's something very different on the resource page that I access through the very first. I've only received the very first email from you, and on that one, it had a resource page that's very different
Do you know how to
from
go
that
to
particular.
do you know how to go to the chat right now and copy that link?
Let me go down one message.
If you go to that chat box and copy that
Perfect.
link, it'll
Thank
take
you.
you to that page.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Awesome. Appreciate it.
yeah, got it. All right. What else? Anybody got any death jokes? Want to hear some death jokes?
I'm not scared about death. I just don't want to be there when it happens.
Right. Yeah, Woody Allen's sort of classic. Yeah.
Robin Williams, right?
All right. I found some corny ones for you. All right. Hold on a second. Let me pull this screen up and this screen up and this screen up and all the screens. Okay, I need to see your faces. Okay. So an old man is at home on his deathbed and suddenly he smells something amazing. It's the smell of his favorite chocolate chip cookies. And with his last strength, he gets out of bed and he goes to the kitchen where his wife of 50 years is cooking these beautiful chocolate chip cookies. And they're on a plate of 4 of them just out of the oven. And with his last human strength, he reaches over to take one of the cookies, and his wife sees him, rushes over and slaps his hand and says, "Those are for the funeral." All right, ready for another one? Okay. All right. Another man is lying on his deathbed. He had been unwell for a while, and the time was drawing near. The man had asked for his family to be gathered in the bedroom to say their goodbyes. Is my darling wife here with me? Yes, love. And is my son here in the bedroom with me? Yes, Father, I'm here. And is my daughter here in the bedroom with me? Yes, Daddy, I'm here. And are the grandchildren here with me? Yes, Grandpa, we're here. Then why is the feckin' light still on in the front room? These are like
Yeah.
It's
That's
like
my
a
dad.
combination of dad jokes and death jokes. All
That's a
right,
good one.
here's a combination of a lawyer joke and a death joke. How about this
I
one?
resemble that joke.
All right. A lawyer was interviewing a doctor about the death of a patient. When you examined the patient, did you check his pulse? Asked the lawyer. I did not, said the doctor. And did you listen for a heartbeat? Said the lawyer. No, I did not, said the doctor. So, in other words, the lawyer said, when you signed the death certificate, you had not taken adequate steps to confirm he was dead. Let me put it this way, said the doctor. At that point, the man's brain was in a jar on my desk. For all I know, I guess he could have been practicing law somewhere.
Good one.
All right, that's a little humor. If you want to find a less corny death joke next time and bring it, please do.
Are you open to a hurricane joke?
Is it too soon for a hurricane joke?
What did the hurricane say to the pecan tree? Hold on to your nuts. You're in for a hell of a blowjob.
That was totally worth it. Thank you.
Yeah. So Damon, Sean, and I were just talking during break about like gathering some grief tenders and trauma-informed folks and figuring out how to tend our community's grief, and maybe scheduling a Zoom call for that to just get people on and be like, how do we do this? How do we help move the grief through? So stay tuned for that. I'll put that out for folks who feel like they have the resources to contemplate at that level. And we can support each other hopefully better than we're doing now and just find our way through. Any last thoughts? Any last reflections? So lovely to be with you all today. It's so eased my heart, and yeah, just being together has been really lovely. See you all next week. I'm happy to stay and chat. If folks want to stay and chat, by Lumen, by Hannah, by whoever's leaving, Satya. Bye, Carla. Bye, Dale. Bye, Jeff.
Lee, I'm willing to offer an infusion of love transmission for anyone who would like just to get some soothing love energy as a gift in this community, or if you know anyone outside of here that could really use some divine mother hug loving support.
And what does that look like from a distance?
It's basically ideally it's over FaceTime, but it could even just be like communicating through some sort of Facebook, Instagram, text, whatever, saying, hey, take 15 minutes and just get yourself into a space, and then I'll send the transmission. Or it can be over FaceTime or any of those, and we can see each other, which I personally like better, but they definitely feel it either way and get for sure a sense of calm and peace and transmutation of at least the bubbly stuff, the stuff that's most obvious.
Okay. Yeah, that's helpful. Are you inclined to come to the conversation? Because I think stuff like that would be helpful.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do that and try to figure out how to disseminate that in a way that is resourcing for you and for others.
Great. Yeah, I want to be able to do something. So, and that's obviously for you as well, my love,
Thank you.
as a way of you receiving.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
It's a practice.
I snuck that in there.
Yeah. You were paying attention.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
All right.
All right. Blessings. Bye.
Bye, Satya.
Lee, Connor and I were talking, and one of the things that we were saying was very important is the self-care of everybody around the dying person. And I know your course is focused on the perspective of the dying person, but I just wanted to mention that self-care for everyone around them is very important. You can't pour from an empty cup, and
yeah, I heard a statistic at one point, and I didn't track down the footnotes, so I don't know if it's true, but 2/3 of caregivers die before their person they're caring for. And usually, the statistics I think are quite skewed because elderly people are sometimes caring for their spouse. But I do think it's really important what you're saying, and let's find a way to weave that in, because it is a hard go to be a caregiver.
I was kicked out of my husband's room periodically by my brother-in-law, and I am so thankful he did that. That was a wonderful gift to me.
How are you doing, Madison? I don't know why your voice isn't coming through. Try again.
Oh,
No, I hear you now.
okay. Yeah, I'm not sure what I'm like looking at the microphone.
We got you now. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I'm all right. I just found out last night that the elderly woman I was caring for passed away, so
So you're a paid caregiver?
yes.
Yeah. Cycles of life. How are you feeling about that?
Yeah, just really sad.
Yeah.
And grateful in a way, just to know her.
Sad and also grateful to know her.
Yeah. And I mean, also really grateful. Just the timing of it. I left on a trip this weekend, and I had this feeling. I was like, I should go and see her before I leave. And I'm really glad I did that because, yeah, basically, I thought I would be able to see her when I came back from. I was visiting my grandparents. But yeah, that wouldn't have been possible. So I'm just glad I went to see her last week.
Yeah, so you got to see her before she passed. What was her name?
Benicia.
Venetia.
Mhm.
That's a beautiful name. And where do you live?
I live in Shutesbury, Massachusetts.
Venetia. Thank you. Mm. Hmm.
I have something else to drop in here. When we were writing out down quality, I don't know, something in number 1 about designating the healthcare person, and I qualified. I said, I want my husband to be my agent as long as he gets the emotional support he needs.
Yeah.
So when I was birthing my baby, it was so important that we had a team of people and he could rotate out and get attention and say, yeah, and process, what was going on. And that's critical for this situation. So that, yeah, I thought it was a new idea that someone brought up earlier about maybe not choosing your partner to be the healthcare agent because you want them to have that chance to process their grief, but he's certainly the person who understands me best.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
we're going to be talking about the addendum, and that's where you can write out longhand what your thoughts are for that, so that if the people involved can say, oh, her husband, and he may not know how to care for himself in that way, and so let's, rotate in or, bring that up as a point of awareness. I love that. Yeah, I love that. As long as he has the care that he needs for his own process. Beautiful. How can we do this in a village context? How can we create the village for these deaths so that we're coming out held and not more traumatized? Yeah.
I'm not in Asheville.
How are they?
I'm sorry, 2 of you were speaking.
Go ahead, Maria. I'm sorry.
I'm thinking about your community trauma quite a bit. I have dear friends in Asheville, and I've been able to hear from a few of them, but having been through the earthquake in San Francisco and then also Hurricane Fran, I can't emphasize enough two things. One is obviously taking people wherever they are, but having a place to gather. Right? And people are spread out all over the place, so more than likely it's going to be in this format. But having a place to gather where people can not only tell their stories but share their resources. Right. And whoever it was who said she was somewhere else, but that she had basically opened her home. You know, sharing resources is probably just that's a more organic thing, but saying, let's get together and talk about this. I mean, the radical acceptance that has to come with the healing is obvious, I think. And then I also think that there, for me anyway, and I tend to be more of an introvert, there are those aspects of grief that just need to be out there, that just need to get a lot of attention, and whether it's with people, animals, trees, dirt, mycelium, whatever, you know, whatever the context is for the individual or the few people, to be able to anchor again in their way of life, even though this traumatic death has swept through.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I'm
you know
hearing,
all of this, right?
I'm hearing your wisdom being that a place to gather, to grieve and share resources, to be in physical proximity to each other.
Yes. 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 Yes.
And
those hugs, those whatever, you know, invite people to bring things to share, even though you don't know what anybody else needs.
yeah. And then also I'm hearing to let people be wherever they're at. There's another piece of wisdom from that. Yeah. And then this last piece was being grounded in something that's still there. Is that sort of what I gathered out of that? Like the mycelium or did I miss? Yeah. Okay. Great. Yeah, those are great.
Yeah. And I'd be happy to contribute in any other way in terms of support from afar.
Yeah.
I mean, I have my career as a clinical psychologist working with individuals more than groups who have had traumatic experiences could come in handy.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm happy to help in any way I can.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to sign off. See
Thank you.
everybody next week. Thank you so much. Mhm.
I was just wondering if you've heard from Earth Haven and how they're doing.
They do have an update on the Earth Haven Facebook page, and if you're on their mailing list, they've been sending out updates by email.
Okay, I'll check it out. Thanks.
Yeah, yeah. It's pretty intense there too. But they have a lot of infrastructure for collaboration and also a lot of the skills for that kind of physical world cleanup. So, you know, they're in some ways better off than others who don't have chainsaws or don't have community collaboration or.
Right.
All right, beloveds. See you next week.
Take care.